The human walked slowly through the market as the sun hung low over the steel towers of Delta 9 Station. Around him, traders yelled prices, aliens haggled over parts, and security bots rolled by with blinking lights. But his eyes locked on one place. A large iron cage stood in the center of the square, guarded by two tall reptilian soldiers. Inside, on the cold floor, sat a girl with silver skin and bright violet eyes. She looked no older than 20. Her wrists were bruised, her ankles chained, and her hair hung in tangled waves across her face. The auctioneer shouted again. "This one is a slave born in the mines of Grexer. Half price today? No history of escape, strong, obedient. Her name is Sari." The crowd laughed as he poked her with a shock stick. She did not scream. She just lowered her head and whispered something no one heard. The human's name was Jace. He had come to Delta 9. To trade parts, not buy lives. But something about her eyes made him stop. They were not the eyes of someone broken. They were quiet eyes, tired, but holding on to something. As he moved closer, he saw her lift her head again. She looked straight at him. Her voice came soft and clear through the bars. "I want you to my master." Jace blinked. The words caught him by surprise. The auctioneer laughed. "Looks like she likes you, human. Place a bid or walk away." Jace did not speak. He just stepped forward. The crowd watched as he looked at the girl again. "Why me?" he asked. Her answer was simple. "Because you are the only one not laughing." Jace's hands tightened into fists. He turned to the auctioneer. "How much?" The auctioneer smiled. 5 credits? She's marked defective. Useless in bed, too quiet. You get what you pay for 5 credits. That was the price of a cheap meal. Jace pulled out the coins and handed them over. The chains were unlocked. The guards stepped aside. The crowd gave a low cheer as if they had just seen a joke finish. But Jace did not laugh. He walked into the cage and reached for her hand. She flinched. He paused, then he knelt beside her and whispered, "You're not a property." Sari's lips parted, but no sound came. No one had ever said that to her. Not even her own kind. Her whole life had been in cages, on ships, in mines. But now, someone was offering her something she did not understand. Freedom helped her stand. Her legs were weak. He held her steady. The guards tossed a torn cloak at her. "Feet. Cover her up if you want. She's yours now." Just ignored them. He wrapped the cloak around her gently and led her through the market. Eyes followed them. Some whispered. Others laughed. But no one stopped them. They reached a small transport ship. It was not fancy, just enough space to fly and sleep. He brought her inside and sat her down. She looked around like someone seeing a new world. "This is your ship?" she asked. Jace nodded. "And now it's yours too." She looked at her hands, the bruises, the scars. She touched her wrists where the chains had been. Then she looked up at him again. "Did you do it?" "Why save Mayachi?" leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "Because I know what cages feel like. Maybe not made of iron, but I've had my own." She looked at him long. Her voice shook. "You don't want to use me? You don't want me to clean or cook or warm your bed?" Just shook his head. "I want you to breathe, to eat, to rest. Then, if you still want to stay, we talk." She did not speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "I don't even know how to sleep without chains." He sat beside her and said, "Then we will learn together." That night, she lay curled in the corner of the ship's soft bed. She kept waiting for the cold floor, for pain, for someone to yell. But none came, and Jace sat across from her, awake, watching the stars outside the window. He knew this was not the end. This was the start of something bigger. Someone would come looking. No slave was ever forgotten, not in this galaxy. But for now, she was free. At least for tonight, and in the silence of space, the chains on her wrists were only memories. Asterisk. Sari opened her eyes to soft humming and a warm blanket over her shoulders. The ship around her was still quiet. No shouting, no cold floors, no shock sticks. Just soft light from a console screen where Jace sat typing something into the ship's navigation. She watched him for a moment. He had not locked her in. He had not tied her hands. And her collar was gone? That small ring of iron had. Been part of her since she was a child, but now it lay on the metal floor like a forgotten nightmare. She sat up slowly. Her legs were still weak, her body was still tired, but something inside her felt light, like maybe she was more than a tool. More than a number. Jace turned and saw her awake. He walked over with a small bowl of warm food and knelt beside her. Again, you need to eat. Your body's starving. She took the bowl with both hands. It smelled strange, but safe. She looked at him and said thank you. He smiled and nodded. They sat in silence. The stars moved slowly outside the window. It was the first time Sari had eaten without being ordered. She had always been told when to eat, when to sleep, when to speak. Now this man, this human, said nothing. He just waited after she finished. She spoke again. Where are we going? Jace looked at the map on his screen. There's a station called Veller's Edge. It's not under slave law. No one can claim you there. But I need parts and fuel. She frowned. They will ask questions. You bought me in front of many. If someone followed us. Jace nodded. I know the risk. I'm ready for it. But are you? She looked down. Her hands shook slightly. I don't know how to walk free. I don't even know what that means. He stood and offered his hand again. Then we'll figure it out together. They reached Veller's Edge. The station lights blinked red and green through the ship's window. It was a large trade hub built from metal ruins of an old war. Ships moved in every direction. Robots floated between docking bays. And thousands of beings walked its glass paths. Jace lowered the ramp. He handed Sari a hooded cloak, just in case. She nodded and put it on. The fabric felt heavy but safe. He led her down the ramp and into the crowd. They moved through the trade lane slowly. Jace needed coolant rods. Sari followed close behind. Her eyes scanned every corner. Her hands stayed inside the cloak. She saw collars on other girls, chains, masters yelling, and no one stopping them. But here and there she saw something else too. Beings walking side by side. No chains, no fear. They stopped at a vendor. Jace started talking prices. Sari kept her head low, but a sharp voice made her freeze. That the girl from Delta Ninegis turned. 3 armored men stood nearby. Their uniforms showed they worked for a private slave guild. One pointed at Sari. That's the Grexer slave. She was sold cheap to a human. Her records are flagged. Return her now and we won't file charges. Sari stepped back. Her heart pounded. Jace moved in front of her. She is not a slave anymore. I paid for her. She is under my care, the man laughed. That's not how it works. The collar code still reads active. That means she is still under contract. Just reached into his coat and threw something at their feet. The broken collar hit the ground with a loud clink. Then remove it from your system. She belongs to no one. The guard stepped closer. This is your last chance. Turn her over. Sari stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but steady. No, I will not go back. You can kill me here, but I will not return. The lead guard raised a shock baton. Jace grabbed his wrist and twisted it hard. The baton dropped. A crowd began to form. Whispers rose. Cameras blinked red. A station drone hovered close. Jace spoke loud enough for all to hear. She is a person, not property. I have her freedom papers. You want to question it? Take it up with station law. The drone scanned the badge of the guard. Then it scanned Sari. A red light blinked once, then turned green. Contract invalid. Former owner deceased. Status updated. Civilian. The guards froze. The drone spoke again. Attempt to reclaim a free civilian is against trade law. Leave now or face penalty. 1 by 1. The guards backed away. The crowd slowly broke apart. Jace took Sari's hand and led her back to the ship. Inside the ship, she sat again on the bed. Her eyes were wide, her chest rose and fell fast. You could have been killed. Jace shrugged. I knew the risk. I chose it. Sari looked at him long. Her hands reached for his. I don't know why you care. But I don't want to run anymore. I want to live. I want to learn. I want to be. Moriarty smiled. Then tomorrow we start again. Outside the window, the stars moved slow as ever. But for the first time in her life, Sari felt the future move toward her instead of away. The morning. Lights of Veller's Edge painted golden lines across the ship's metal walls. Sari stood near the small sink. her hands under the water as if trying to wash away more than dust. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. The bruises on her neck were fading. Her wrist still carried marks from the chains. But her eyes looked different, less hollow, less afraid. She touched her face and whispered something under her breath. A name, but not hers behind her. Jace stepped in with a fresh bag of food. He paused when he saw her standing there. "You all right?" She turned and nodded. Then she spoke softly. "Do you know, I do not have a real name." Jace blinked. "What do you mean?" She held up her hand. "They gave me the number S-47 when I was taken. As a child. Later they called me Grexer slave. That is all I've known." Jace placed the bag down and leaned against the wall. "Then choose one now. You're free to name yourself." Her eyes widened. "Can I do that?" Jace smiled. "Everyone deserves a name. A name is not a gift. It is a right." Sari looked down at the floor. She closed her eyes. For a long moment she stood silent. Then she opened them and said it clearly. "My name is Ilara. I remember hearing that name once in a story before they took me." It was the name of a warrior who broke her chains. Jace nodded. "Ilara suits you." She smiled for the first time since he met her. A small smile, but it changed her whole face. In that smile was strength. In that name was power. Later they sat down to eat. Jace explained their next stop. "There's a moon colony called Halem 3. They grow food and trade safely. You'll be safe there while I work." Ilara looked up. "You want me to stay behind?" He shook his head. "No, I just thought you might want space." She answered quickly. "I don't want space. I want to help." He gave her a small tablet and showed her the controls. "This tells you the ship's balance. This part here is temperature. And this icon is for basic communication." She nodded slowly as she listened. Her fingers moved across the screen with care. She did not speak much, but her eyes focused sharp. After a few hours of learning systems, she sat beside him and whispered, "I never thought someone would teach me anything. In the mines we were told to break rocks and stay quiet. I thought learning was only for the rich." Jace looked at her. "Learning is for anyone who chooses to grow." They entered orbit around Halem 3 by night. The moon colony glowed with small lights from farmlands and wind towers. Jace sent a docking request. Ilara watched the screen as it beeped approval. She felt her heart beat faster. A new place. A new start. But part of her still waited for someone to drag her back. The landing was smooth. The doors opened to fresh air and quiet fields. A worker approached them. She had soft fur and wide amber eyes. Jace greeted her with respect. "We're here to trade and rest." The worker nodded. "You're welcome here. No weapons. No violence, no slavery." Ilara's eyes opened wide at the last word. She had never heard someone say it like that. As a rule. As a law. As something they would never allow. They were given a small guest room in the colony's outer ring. Jace unpacked a few tools. Ilara sat by the window and watched children running between harvest trees. None of them had collars. None of them looked over their shoulders. She spoke again after a long silence. "How do people live like this? Without fear, without chains?" Jace looked at her. "You get used to peace, slowly, day by day." The next morning, Ilara joined the farming teams. She helped carry water. She helped clean the leaves off harvest drones. The workers smiled at her. No one shouted. No one touched her without asking. And when she laughed once by accident, everyone turned with surprise, then smiled back. Jace watched her from a distance. He had seen many broken souls in his travels, but Ilara was different. She was not trying to survive anymore. She was trying to live. That night he found her outside looking at the stars. She pointed upward. "Do you think somewhere out there is the planet where I was born?" Jace nodded. "I do. Do you want to find it someday?" She looked at her hands. "Maybe, but not yet. For now, I want to grow things. I want to touch soil and feel like I belong." He sat beside her. The wind was soft. The colony lights blinked in the distance. She leaned her head on his shoulder for a moment and whispered, "Thank you for not treating me like a shadow. Thank you for calling me Ilara." He did not answer with words. He just stayed beside her as the stars above moved slow and silent. *, the sound of metal boots on stone echoed through the quiet paths of Halem 3. The wind blew softly through the fields, but the air felt heavy. Something had changed. Ilara was working near the water pumps when she noticed the silence first. The laughter of the children had stopped. The workers had turned their heads toward the landing pad. A dark ship had arrived, sleek and sharp like a blade, its hull marked with red symbols she knew too well. The mark of the chain syndicate. She dropped the tools in her hand and took a step back. Her breath caught in her throat. Memories rushed in like fire. The mines, the cages, the guards with cold eyes. She turned and ran toward the guest hall where Jace had gone to speak with the Trade Council. Just saw her before she spoke. One look at her face told him enough. He grabbed her hand. What is it? She could not speak at first. She only pointed. The syndicate. They are here. Jace moved fast. He pulled her into the back corridor of the building and grabbed a small device from his coat, a scanner. He pointed it toward the landing pad. 3 life forms, 1 human, 2 non-human. Weapons active. Tracking beacon faint but real. Ilara backed against the wall. Her voice trembled. They marked me. I thought it was gone. But they put a beacon under my skin when I was a child. It sends a signal every 30 days. Even if the collar is removed. Jace stared at her wrist. We need to get that thing out of you. She shook her head. If we cut it wrong, it could kill me. That is what they warned us. That is how they control us. The syndicate guards entered the colony paths like hunters. Their leader wore a long black coat and carried a scanner. He showed the device to a nearby worker. Have you seen this girl? Her name is S47. She is a slave who escaped with a human. The worker shook her head and stepped away. The syndicate man frowned and tapped a button. A red light blinked. The tracker signal grew stronger. He turned toward the guest quarters and raised his hand. Fan out. Search every room inside the storage hall. Jace held Ilara close. We need time. I have one idea. But it will hurt. She nodded quickly. I am ready. He pulled a toolkit from the shelf and found a pulse clamp. It was used to stop blood flow during ship repairs on biocircuits. He pressed it around her arm. The pain was instant. But the signal dropped. The tracker on the syndicate scanner went dark. Their leader growled. Find the source. It is still. Hirayachi lifted Ilara over his shoulder and moved through the back tunnels. The colony was built on old mining shafts. The underground paths twisted deep beneath the fields. Few knew they existed, but Jace had seen the maps. They reached a cold chamber where old tools and machines lay forgotten. He set her down gently. She was sweating, her face pale. But she gripped his hand. Will not go back. I would rather die here than return to the chains. Jace looked at her. You will not die. Not here, not now. He pulled out a small med device and scanned her arm. The signal was faint, but still there. He took a breath and inserted a fine needle into the skin. Ilara gasped but did not move. He found the chip. It was shaped like a seed. He placed a magnetic extractor near it and slowly began to pull above them. The guards moved through each building. The scanner blinked once, then again. The leader pointed to the west wing. Signal restored. Move now. Inside the chamber. The chip slid free from Ilara's arm. Jace crushed it under his boot. The light inside it died. Ilara collapsed into his arms. Weak but alive. It is done. You are clean. Suddenly a sound from the tunnel made Jace freeze. A voice echoed through the dark. Come out, human. We know you are down here. Surrender the girl and you live. Jace whispered to Ilara. Stay behind me, no matter what. He stepped into the tunnel light. His shadow long against the rock walls. The syndicate leader stood with a gun aimed at him. That girl is property. She was bought, branded. She cannot be yours. Jace stared him down. She is not a thing. She is not for sale. And she is not going anywhere. With youth leader laughed. Then you die for her. But before he could fire, a blast of wind struck from behind. The colony guards had followed them through the tunnels. The lead worker raised her voice. This moon does not allow slavers. Leave now or face justice. A syndicate leader growled. He turned and vanished into the shadows. His guards followed in silence. No shots fired. No blood spilled. Ilara stepped forward. her legs shaking. But her eyes strong, she looked at the crushed chip on the ground and whispered that piece of me is gone now, forever asterisk. The wind carried the soft scent of blossoms as Ilara walked alone near the outer fields of Halem 3. The sun was low and golden. Light spilled across the ground. Her steps were slow but steady. Her arm still hurt from the removal of the chip, but the pain reminded her she was finally free. No more chains. No more trackers. Just her breath and the sky above. She reached a patch of flowers near the fence line. They were small and pale blue with long petals that moved with the breeze. She knelt beside them and touched one gently. It bent slightly under her fingers but did not break. Her eyes filled with something new, a feeling she had no name for yet. Maybe it was peace. Maybe it was sorrow behind her. Jace approached quietly. He held a wrapped cloth in one hand. When she turned to look at him, he smiled and sat down beside her. These flowers grow only once every 3 cycles, he said. They bloom for 3 days, then disappear, just like smoke in the sky. She looked at the blossoms again. I never thought anything would grow in a place where machines work so hard. He nodded. Life finds a way even in hard ground. Sometimes the softer things last longer than iron. She touched one flower and then looked at him. I had a name before the chains. I do not remember it, but I remember a song. My mother sang it while we worked the soil. I remember the sound, but not the words. I remember her hands holding mine and showing me how to dig. Then one night fire came from the sky and Takenjas placed the cloth in her lap and unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a small tool made of polished stone. It was worn and old but clean. I found this in the old storage tunnel, he said. It looks like something from a farming set. Maybe from your world? Maybe from someone like you. She held it like it was something holy. Her fingers closed around it. Her breath caught in her throat. This shape, I know. My mother had one. She used it to cut the roots of weeds. He watched her with care. You can leave this behind if you wish, or you can hold it and walk forward. What matters now is what you choose. Ilara looked out at the field again. The sky was turning violet. She stood slowly and walked to a small patch of bare soil. She knelt and pressed the stone tool into the earth. Her hands moved on instinct. Dig, loosen, plant, pat. She reached for one of the blue flowers and took a single seed from its center. Then she pressed it into the ground and covered it. Jess stood beside her as she finished. She looked up at him. With dirt on her fingers, I want to plant something real. Not just flowers, food, trees, a place where no one is taken. A place where no collars are made. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we start here. We ask the colony for a plot. We build from the soil up. You lead and I help. She blinked back tears. Not sadness, not fear, but something like pride. Something like strength. Waking up that night, the stars above were sharp and clear. Ilara sat at the table inside their room. She wrote her name again and again on a sheet of paper. Ilara. Ilara. She wanted to make sure it was real. That its Staegis was at the console sending a message to the colony council. Request for a farming plot. Volunteer help offered. Plan submitted. She turned and spoke. If they say yes, will you stay here with me? He paused and looked at her. I did not come here for long. But now I cannot leave if you ask me to stay. She nodded. Then stay. I want to build something with someone who does not see me as a tool. The next morning, they walked to the council chamber together. The lead worker with amber eyes met them with a datapad. Your request is accepted, she said. The land near the north is yours. Use it well. Teach others. Build something new. Ilara reached out and touched her hand. Thank you. I will not waste this gift. They walked together through the field and reached the place where her future would begin. Jace helped her mark the corners. She dug again with the stone tool. Each motion was quiet and sure. Others came to help. Some brought seeds, some brought wood. One brought water. By sunset, a small garden bed had formed. Just earth and hope, and hence Ilara stood at the center and held one of the pale blue flowers. She did not cry. She just pressed it into the ground and whispered, "This is for the ones who could not make it here. This is for my mother." This is for me, and the flower swayed gently as if it heard her voice. The night came fast on Halem 3, and the wind carried a strange scent across the fields. Jace stood outside the small shelter they had built beside the new garden. He stared at the horizon, where a flicker of orange light danced in the far distance. At first he thought it was a sunset reflection, but it was moving, too fast, too wild. He reached for the scanner on his belt and tapped a quick signal. The device blinked red and displayed one word. Farilara stepped out behind him, holding a clay bowl filled with clean water. She paused when she saw his face. "What is it?" He pointed to the glowing line beyond the hills. "Flames. Something is burning near the northern supply ridge." She followed his gaze and gripped the bowl tighter. "Is it coming here?" Jace nodded slowly. "Wind direction is shifting." "If it spreads?" "We have little time." They ran to the colony center, where guards were already rushing into motion. Buckets, hoses, fire drones. The lead worker met them with panic in her eyes. "We think it started near the old mining vents. Maybe a fuel leak. Or maybe something else. The Syndicate is known to cause fires to flush people out." Ilara stepped forward. "Let me help. I know how to move water lines. I learned on my first assignment before the mines." Jace looked at her. "You sure?" She met his eyes without shaking. "I want to protect what we planted." They followed the guard team toward the fire zone. Heat pressed against their faces. Smoke curled like claws through the air. Ilara pulled her scarf over her mouth and grabbed one end of a water hose. Jace did the same. Together they moved along the side of the fire line, spraying the dry brush. With cold streams, flames roared from the vents. The old structures cracked and hissed as pressure inside them fought to escape. One burst open, sending a spray of burning oil across the field. Ilara fell back but did not drop the hose. She braced herself and aimed at the fire's base. Jace called out, "This section is lost. We need to block it from reaching the east." Ilara spotted a wall of stacked harvest bins nearby. She ran toward them and began pushing them over one by one. Dirt spilled from inside, forming a rough barrier. Jace joined her, and together they built a crude firewall. Others followed their lead. Buckets poured. Hoses screamed. Drones dropped. Foam hours passed, and still the fire tried to push forward. The sky turned red, the air thick. The garden they built was safe for now, but the ground around it glowed with heat. Suddenly, a scream tore through the smoke. A young boy was trapped near a collapsed walkway. Ilara heard the cry and ran without pause. The guards yelled, but she was already past them. She crawled under the beam and found him curled behind a crate, his face covered in soot. His eyes wide with terror. She reached out. "Come with me. I will not let them take you." The boy hesitated, then grabbed her hand. The heat was sharp. Her cloak caught a spark. She dropped to the ground and rolled with the boy in her arms. Flames licked the air above them. But her body moved on memory. She had run from worse. She had crawled through mines with broken legs. This fire would not stop her now. Just reached them as she stumbled from the smoke. He pulled her cloak off and threw water on the burning edge. The boy gasped, but was safe. The guards led them back to the edge of the colony where others were waiting. The fire had slowed. The wind shifted again. Rain began to fall, soft and steady. People began to cheer. Small at first, then louder. Not because the fire was gone, but because they had stood together. They had not run. They had saved what they could. Ilara sat on the wet ground, breathing hard. Her arms burned, her hair singed, but she smiled. Jace knelt beside her and placed a hand on her back. "You saved him." She looked at the boy being wrapped in blankets. "I saw his face, and I remembered mine." Later that night, as the rain soaked the field, they returned to the garden. The flowers were still there, the soil wet but whole. Ilara touched the stone tool again, the one from the tunnels. She pressed it into the earth and dug another. Lineages handed her a new seed. This one was red, a fire flower, grows only in heat. Blooms after ashes. She planted it with both hands. "Tomorrow we start again," she said, and the garden answered with silence and strength. The sky was clear and blue above Halem 3 as the colony moved with slow joy. Children laughed in the new garden rows. Workers shared meals under open tents. And beside the small patch of red fire flowers stood Ilara with her sleeves rolled up and hands covered in dirt. Her eyes watched every seed as if each one held a promise. She moved like a leader, not someone told what to do. But someone others chose to follow. Jay stood near the edge of the garden with a tool belt over his shoulder and grease on his hands. He had spent the morning fixing broken water lines and old pumps. He looked toward Ilara with quiet pride. She was not the girl from the cage anymore. She was not a number or a shadow. She was a voice, a builder, a soul in bloom. She turned and waved him over. He came quickly and sat beside her on the wooden bench they built together. She handed him a piece of bread and a fruit from the tree they helped save after the fire. He took it with a smile. "Thank you." She nodded and spoke softly. "This fruit tastes better than anything from the markets." He bit into it and nodded. Because it grew from soil we healed. They sat in silence for a while, watching the garden breathe. The red flower had opened, its petals wide like fire made soft. Ilara reached out and touched one. Then she spoke again. "I used to dream of a place like this when I was in the mines. I would close my eyes and pretend I was somewhere warm with trees and sky and no chains on my wrists. I thought it was only a dream. But now I am here and it is real." Jace looked at her with care. He had seen many people try to escape their pasts. Few ever found peace, but Ilara had turned pain into growth. He could see it in every step she took. She stood and looked toward the hill that faced the landing bay. A small ship sat there, old and quiet. It was Jace's ship, the one he used to bring her here, the one that had become their shelter before. They built a real room. Ilara turned back to him. "I want to show you something." He followed her up the path. She led him to the top of the hill where the air was clear and the stars would shine bright at night. There she had placed stones in a circle. Inside it were small objects. A broken collar, a piece of mining rock, the tool her mother once used, and a flower seed wrapped in a cloth. "This is my past," she said. "I will not forget it. But I will not let it define me either. I bury it here not to hide it, but to honor it. Every scar I carry helped me reach this place." She knelt and pressed the seed into the dirt. Jace knelt beside her. "You are stronger than anyone I have ever met." She looked at him and smiled. "I am strong because someone believed in me when I had nothing." As they stood, she reached for his hand. He paused and held it gently. Her voice came low, but clear. "I do not want you to leave. This garden is home, but only if you are part of it. You found me when I was lost. You gave me space when I needed breath. You gave me respect when no one else saw worth. You gave me hope." Jace did not answer with words. He stepped closer and touched her face with both hands. His eyes held steady. "I will not leave. Not now, not ever. This is my home." That night they shared food with the colony. Music played from old speakers. Children danced around the new tree that had just begun to bloom. Ilara sat beside Jace under a lantern light. She wore a cloth dress made from trade fabric, simple, strong, clean one. Of the children approached and held up a bracelet made of garden vines. "For you," she said to Ilara, "because you are the one who made the flowers come back." Ilara smiled and placed it on her wrist. Then she looked at Jace. "Never thought I would have a family. But now I do." Just nodded. "So do I." As the stars appeared one by one in the sky above Halem 3, the wind moved through the trees with gentle hands. The flowers leaned toward the moon. And Ilara leaned into the man who once knelt in a cage beside her and whispered, "You are not a property now." She held him and said, "You are my home."